How are we doing, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Steele Talkin Sports. I am your host, Jay Steele, and let's get talking. Bam! It is Tuesday, March 11th, roughly midnight. We'll call this Monday night, Tuesday morning. But it is that time of the year. March Madness is upon us. Same time last year is when we started this podcast. So we are now 1 year into the books with this. And we've had some fire college basketball games over the past week or so, including some today. Currently, there's one college basketball game still going on. San Francisco and Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference semifinal. San Francisco leads 34-30 with 2 minutes to go in the first half. There's been some great games today, a couple of big upsets. There was only 12 games, so I will recap them as we go. Starting out with Delaware and Towson earlier on today. Delaware gets the W 82-72. They were a 6.5, 7.5 point dog. Great win there. Next up, Northwestern State in the Southland tournament gets the win over Corpus Christi. In the Sun Belt final, Troy gets the W over Arkansas State, 94-81. SoCon Championship final, Wofford gets the win, 92-85. Horizon League semifinal, Robert Morris, 79-76. Big Sky Championship third round, Montana State, 80-60. Southland Tournament quarterfinal, Nichols gets the W, 74-70 over Incarnate Word. Coastal Athletic Conference CAA Championship semifinal, UNCW gets a 1-point win over Charleston, 68-67. In the Big Sky, another third round matchup, Idaho gets the win, 80 over Portland State, 70. That was a 4.5, 5-point upset. And then in the last game of the night that has gone final, Horizon League semifinal, Youngstown State 56, Cleveland State 54. That is the 12 games that were on the docket for Monday, March 10th. So let's get into it. We are here to talk conference tournaments. They start tomorrow, Tuesday, March 11th, beginning with the Big 12 Championship first round matchup, Cincinnati at Oklahoma State at 12:30 on ESPN+. But before we do that, let's talk about conference tournament odds. Here we go. In the Big 12, obviously, you've got the favorites, the Houston Cougars at -105. 1 second here. There we go. Texas Tech +425, Iowa State +600, Arizona State +850, BYU 11-1, Kansas 13-1, Baylor 50-1, West Virginia 75-1, Kansas State 200-1, Cincinnati 200, Utah 250-1, UCF 250-1, TCU 250-1, and then the last three, Oklahoma State and Arizona State at 300-1, and Colorado at a crazy 500-1. What is plausible in this Big 12 tournament? Definitely the top four seeds. Houston -105, Texas Tech +425, Iowa State +600, and Arizona +850. Over the past few weeks, Houston has played good. Texas Tech has kind of slid a little bit. Iowa State had a couple of bad games but rebounded late. Arizona has looked bad. BYU, surprisingly good. In the fifth best odds there. Kansas, who freaking knows? And then there's a big jump to the seventh best odds team at Baylor at 50-1. Now, I do think Baylor has the talent and they have the coach in Scott Drew. But this Big 12 tournament is really top heavy with three teams. It's going to be Houston, Texas Tech, or Iowa State for me. Texas Tech is really the only team that I think can compete with Houston. So if it gets down to a Texas Tech Houston final, I would like a plus 425 on Texas Tech if I was to bet this one. But I don't know. This is a weird tournament. This is a weird league where there's a lot of good athletes on every basketball team, and there's arguments you could make for every single basketball team within the top 6, maybe 7 teams. As far as the Big 12 tomorrow, the matchups that you have, Cincinnati playing Oklahoma State. All these games are played in Kansas City, Missouri at the T-Mobile Center. So at 12:30, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. Cincinnati laying 6.5 points. Colorado plays TCU. TCU minus 1.5. Arizona State plays Kansas State at 7 o'clock. Kansas State minus 5.5. And then at 9:30 p.m., UCF and Utah square off with Utah favored minus 1.5. I like Oklahoma State in the first matchup plus the points. I don't know if I think they can win, but I do like plus the points in that matchup. 3 o'clock game, I like TCU minus the 1.5. I think they advance. Colorado, just a poor team this year. Had a lot of players leave from last year's team. In the 7 o'clock matchup, Arizona State and Kansas State. Just give me Kansas State, Jerome Tang, better coach in that matchup. Minus 5.5 is a big number for Kansas State, but I think they get it done. And then Utah UCF, out of the 4 games, this is probably the best one of those 4 at 9:30. I do like Utah minus the 1.5. They've played better over the last couple of weeks. So I like that matchup. Wednesday, as far as the Big 12, you would have Iowa State, West Virginia, Baylor, and Kansas all playing the winners of those 4 games on Tuesday. I think West Virginia could get picked off in that second matchup, and also Baylor, Kansas State, or Kansas, I expect to roll. So if I go back to the odds here, there's no value on any of the 4 teams or any of the 8 teams that play tomorrow in those 4 games. As far as the lines, though, in the Big 12 tomorrow, the 4 games, I will go Oklahoma State plus 6.5, TCU minus 1.5, Kansas State minus 5.5, and Utah minus 1.5. Three favorites, one dog in the Big 12. I know it's a little chalky, but I think those are the right plays for tomorrow's matchups in the Big 12. Let's move on to the next conference listed on the DraftKings conference tourney page. We've got the SWAC. The SWAC is a fun conference. I think every team is equally the same. I think Southern University has the best record out of all of them for the season, but just as from an athlete perspective, they're all about the same, to be honest. They really don't have a lot of differences between team to team. They have 2 games going tomorrow in their conference tournament. We'll see the conference standings. Southern with a 15-3 conference record. Jackson State 14-4. Bethune-Cookman 13-5. And then you've got Texas Southern and Alabama State at 12-6. Southern is most certainly the best team in this conference. Damn it, ESPN. Quit moving too fast. All right, so the SWAC has 2 games going tomorrow. Alabama A&M and Grambling at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Grambling is laying 5.5 points. Both teams have a 10-21 overall record. Alabama A&M 6-12 in conference, with Grambling at a 7-11 in conference. And then at 8:30, you've got Prairie View A&M 5-26 overall record against Florida A&M 13-16 overall record, with Florida A&M laying 7.5 points. I think both of the favorites win, but I think both of the dogs cover the spread. 5.5 and 7.5 are just way too many points in this conference. Both teams, Alabama A&M plus the points, and Prairie View A&M plus the points. Actually, Prairie View sucks. That might be it. I might switch that. As far as the conference tournament odds, Southern plus 165, Jackson State plus 320, Texas Southern plus 650, Bethune-Cookman 650, and Alabama State 650. So the 3, 4, and 5 seeds all have the same odds, even though they do have slightly different records. How do the one in... Okay, so I'm confused. So Alabama A&M and Grambling both, and then Prairie View and Florida A&M play on Tuesday. But on Wednesday, the 1 and 2 seeds play the winners of those 2 games. And the other quarterfinals for the 3, 4 and the 5, 6 are on Thursday. That makes no sense. Why do your 1 and 2 seeds play on Wednesday? Why do they have an alternating... I'm so confused. That is so weird. Damn. That makes me like the odds on like Texas Southern and Bethune-Cookman a little bit more, because I guess they initially get one more day of rest during the week, but if Southern wins their game on Wednesday against the winner of Grambling or Bama A&M, they get rest and don't play until Friday. That's a weird schedule, though. Interesting. Rounding out the rest of the SWAC conference tournament odds: Alcorn plus 1,200, Florida A&M plus 1,800, Grambling 35-1, Prairie View 180-1, and Alabama A&M 300-1. I think your best bet are two of the three teams at plus 650, and then Southern University, just because they're still plus odds at plus 165. So it would be Southern, Texas Southern, and Bethune-Cookman if I had to go with SWAC tournament odd winners. Moving on. I need to speed this up a little bit. Talked a little bit too much about those two. Mountain West Conference tournament odd winners: New Mexico plus 250, Utah State plus 330, Colorado State plus 350, Boise State plus 425, San Diego State plus 700, UNLV 18-1, Nevada 22-1, San Jose State jumps to a whopping 200-1, Wyoming 250-1, Fresno State 300-1, and Air Force 500-1. The Falcons. The Mountain West, really competitive conference. New Mexico, Utah State, Colorado State, and Boise State have all been definitely the best four of the conference this year, with San Diego State being their typical self over the past few years. They play magnificent defense, and they've got a coach that can kind of will them to a win. I think that's as far down and as I would go down the long shot odds in this conference. San Diego State to get the conference tournament. But based on the way that they're playing right now, I would say Colorado State and Boise State. Colorado State just this past weekend went to Boise State and got a W. So I like the way that they are playing, just based on past performances, really. Let's see. They've won 7 games in a row at Boise by 10, at home against San Jose State by 27, at home against Utah State by 30, at Air Force by 22, at UNLV by 8. Their last loss was at Utah State by 8 points on February 11th. So I like the way Colorado State is playing right now. I will say, on Thursday, there is a matchup, Boise State and San Diego State in the quarterfinal. The other quarterfinals are all waiting on a matchup to be played on Wednesday. So just based on that game, because that game is already set, I think the winner of that game wins the conference tournament. I'm just taking a long shot. I do like Colorado State, but Boise State and San Diego State, those would be my other two picks. You could look at it as like whoever wins that game might lose the next game, but I think it's such a competitive matchup that whoever wins that game will prepare that team for the next game and potentially the final. So my top two plays in the Mountain West would be Boise State and San Diego State. Next up, ACC tournament. We've got obviously the big favorite, Duke minus 320, Louisville plus 550, Clemson plus 650, North Carolina plus 3,000, SMU 65-1, Wake 80-1, and then every other team beyond that is 250-1 or 300-1. Virginia Tech, Virginia, Stanford, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, and Cal. Wow. A lot of games, a lot of teams, a lot of teams that don't really have a chance. I will include North Carolina because I've already placed a bet on them. The number is way higher now than when I bet it. Like 24 to 48 hours ago, it was North Carolina plus 2,200. It's now North Carolina plus 3,000. So the number's gone in the wrong direction for me, but it's a better number now. Either way, I don't really think North Carolina has a chance to win it, but it was worth a sprinkle. Duke, Louisville, Clemson, obviously the best three teams in this conference, but Duke is far and away the best team in this conference compared to the rest. As long as they don't phone it in, they should win this easily. But do they really care? Who knows? My logic is that John Shire doesn't want to play 3 games in 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to turn around and play Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday next week going into the first round of the NCAA tournament. So, does Duke really care? I don't think so. They'd be happy to win game 1 and be happy to win game 2, but I think if they even have to play the final game, they expend too much energy. So I think they win game 1 and lose the semifinal matchup, whoever they play. Now, that's just my take on it. I don't know. They've beaten a bunch of teams by a really wide margin the past few weeks. They don't really need to do anything else to solidify the 1 seed. They're a 1 seed. They're probably the best overall team, especially with Alabama losing to Auburn. Alabama beating Auburn at Auburn this past weekend. As far as the ACC game matchups on Tuesday, you have Pitt playing Notre Dame. Pitt favored minus 3.5. Both teams sucks. Give me the plus 3.5 with Notre Dame. Cal and Virginia Tech. Cal is favored minus 3.5. Cal has 6 conference wins. Virginia Tech has 8. Why is Cal favored minus 3.5? The line is telling you Cal minus 3.5. And then the last matchup, Syracuse against Florida State. Florida State favored minus 3.5. The players get up for Leonard Hamilton one last time and get a win in the conference tournament, and then they lose on Wednesday. So, they win by 4. But that's all 3 of those ACC games are ugly games. I would not advise anybody to bet those games. Next up, we have the WAC tournament, the Western Athletic Conference. I guess that's what it's called. Grand Canyon plus 130, Utah Valley plus 240, Seattle plus 500, Cal Baptist plus 600, Abilene Christian 19-1, UT Arlington 30-1, Tarleton State 80-1, Utah Tech 180-1, and Southern Utah 300-1. To be honest, I don't know a lot about any of these teams. Grand Canyon is the most popular team. I think Utah Valley is playing the best as far as what I've watched. And Seattle is fun, but I don't really trust them. They just have one player who has like a ridiculous look and aura about him. White dude, red hair, named Kobe Williamson. Classic. Look him up. Absolute legend. It would be the top three teams for me: Grand Canyon, Utah Valley, or Seattle, but no real confidence in any of that. Hold on. DraftKings just logged me out. Appreciate that. 1 moment as I get logged back in. Well, I guess technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, wow. Quickly, Gonzaga has a lead on San Francisco. How about that? All right. Here we go. Now we're back in business. All right. Where were we? Let's see. The MAAAC. I can't pick any of those games right, so I'm not gonna make any bets there. The Southland Conference. There's only 2 games left. McNeese minus 360, or I guess 3 games left, 2 semis and a final. McNeese minus 360, Lamar plus 650, Nicholls State plus 750, and Northwestern State 25-1. Now, I did win bets on both Nicholls State and Northwestern State tonight, so I'm kind of partial to both of those teams. Those games are tomorrow, Tuesday. Lines are not out for those games, but if I had to guess, Northwestern State plays McNeese. Let's see how these 2 matchups fared this season. So they played twice. On Monday, January 6th, McNeese won 92-69. The spread was 10.5. Covered that easy. And then on February 8th, McNeese won at home 65-50, and the spread was 17.5. So Northwestern State covered. So we had 1 at 11.5 on the road and a 17.5 at home. Conference tournament game, I'm going to guess this is probably somewhere around 15. This is a type of conference where McNeese is not going to get an outright bid if they don't win their league. So I'm going to take McNeese in that game to win by 20 plus. Nichols and Lamar, this is going to be a 1 to 2 point spread either way. I don't know, man. I bet Nichols minus 3.5 tonight, and I got lucky to cover. I don't know if I can trust that again, so I could probably be convinced in a Lamar plus 2.5, plus 3.5, whatever the number is when it comes out. But I can't confidently take any of the plus odds or McNeese. I would just say just take McNeese in the points in each of their games. Let's see. Let's go down to the A10, the Atlantic 10 Conference. Yeah, there's a couple more good ones. The Atlantic 10 has been dominated by VCU all year. They score a ton of points. They are minus 120 to win their conference tournament. Next, you have Dayton at plus 550, George Mason plus 600, St. Joe's plus 800, Loyola Chicago, very surprising at 17 to 1, St. Louis 20 to 1, George Washington 22 to 1, and the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure 25 to 1. Everybody beyond that 70 to 1 or better or longer. No interest in Duquesne, Davidson, Rhode Island, UMass, Richmond, LaSalle, or Fordham. Just being honest. I like Dayton at plus 550, St. Joe's at plus 800, and then Loyola Chicago 17 to 1. Don't sleep on that pick. I think that's a really good one right there. Now, what everybody wants to hear, the SEC tournament, obviously the best conference in basketball all year long. Auburn plus 150, Florida plus 270, Alabama plus 425, Tennessee plus 600. Then we have a big jump. Kentucky 19 to 1. Texas A&M 25 to 1, a team that's been ranked most of the year. Missouri 25 to 1, Ole Miss 65 to 1, Georgia 110 to 1, Mississippi State 150 to 1, Arkansas 150 to 1, Vanderbilt and everybody else 200 to 1 or better. This is a loaded league. I could see everybody down to Ole Miss winning this tournament. So your top 8 odds teams, and Ole Miss at 65 to 1. This is a crazy league. Every team is competitive. Every team is good. Don't count out even John Calipari at Arkansas. I know he made comments that he doesn't care about the SEC tournament, but if he can improve his standing by winning games in the SEC tournament to get to the NCAA tournament, you bet your ass he cares about it. I mean, even if you put $1 on Arkansas to win, that's $150. I might do it. I might just put $1 on it because it's that ridiculous. He's that good of a coach. He could win 4 games in a row, no problem. 5 games in a row, whatever he's got to win. My best bet, though, Alabama at plus 425, Tennessee at plus 600, and then give me Missouri at 25 to 1. Just a crazy one. Big Ten tournament, Michigan State plus 250, Maryland plus 350, Wisconsin plus 650, UCLA 650, Purdue 650, Illinois 750, Michigan plus 1200, Oregon plus 2800, Indiana 60 to 1, Ohio State 65 to 1, Rutgers in the rest 200 to 1 or longer. Really competitive conference here too, but it's pretty top heavy. I think Purdue and Illinois are mispriced at plus 650 and 750. Two teams that could get hot quickly. Michigan turns the ball over too much for me at plus 1200. Oregon is on a roll right now. I think they've won 7 or 8 in a row. 28 to 1 wouldn't be a bad idea. It's worth a shot. But the two best teams in this conference right now, Michigan State and Maryland, I think they're both just on a collision course to play each other in the final, and we get a really good game there. So the fact that you could get Tom Izzo right now plus 250 to win the Big Ten Conference tournament, I think that's a really good play. But the way that Michigan State has played over the past few weeks, they've played really good ball. Why are they plus 250? I would expect them to be a bit closer to even money, like plus 100, plus 125. So I'm a little surprised that the odds are that high. But if it's that high, then I think it's worth, loading a unit on Michigan State. And, if they get to the end, then, it's a plus 250 win for you. That's interesting to me. Also, it may be a sign that like somebody in this middle tier comes up and wins it and solidifies their bid for the tournament, because Tom Izzo knows that he's like locked into the 2 seed. Yeah, would be worth a shot on Purdue, Illinois, and then a long shot on Oregon. Dana Altman's a really good coach. If their players can shoot the 3 the way they have been, Jackson Shellstad, Bartholomew, and Nate Biddle, they can light it up pretty quickly, man. So Oregon, I think, is a really good play as well. I think I'm going to do 2 more, the Big East and the Big West. Big East Conference Tournament, St. John's plus 155, Creighton plus 370, UConn plus 400, Marquette plus 550, Xavier plus 850, Villanova 15 to 1, Butler 65 to 1, Georgetown, Providence, Seton Hall, and DePaul all 90 to 1 or longer. This league is really top heavy. St. John's, Creighton, UConn, and Marquette. There's no chance for anybody else. They're just all bad. I know that Xavier and Butler have 2 really good coaches in Sean Miller and Thad Matta, respectively, but their teams can't perform at the level as the top 4. UConn probably needs this more than the other 3 teams. St. John is a solid 2 or 3 seed right now. Creighton and Marquette are solidly in, probably 5 seeds, 6 seeds maybe. But UConn is the one that could improve their standing the most. They are in the 8-9-ish realm right now, and they need some statement wins over Big East opponents through this tournament to improve their standing. Maybe the top 8 seed or a low 7. Maybe if they win the tournament, they get to a 6. Maybe if it's a very deciding win. So I like UConn at plus 400. I like Marquette at plus 550 as well. My favorite team all season has been St. John's. I've probably had the most success betting St. John's all season. I bet them this past Saturday on the money line against Marquette. That was a thrill of a ride. Came down to the buzzer in overtime. But I just love Rick Pitino. I love what he's doing with that team. They have a slew of players that seems like they all score 15 points a night. Davon Smith, R.J. Lewis, Kardari Richmond, Zuby Ejiofor, Aaron Scott. Like, their whole starting 5 can get 15 apiece every single night. And you don't see that often in college basketball. I just like what they're doing. I like St. John's to win the national championship. I'm just going to say it. But to win the Big East Conference tournament, UConn and Marquette. And then the last conference tournament I'm going to talk about is the Big West. They only have 8 teams in. I guess they cut the rest of them. UC San Diego minus 160. UC Irvine plus 175. Cal State Northridge 12-1. UC Riverside 17-1. UC Santa Barbara 40-1. Cal Poly 100-1. UC Davis 200-1, and Bakersfield 300-1. Obviously, all of these colleges are in California. It's amazing that they have an entire conference that's just all California schools. That's fucking awesome. Every state should have one of those. That's pretty badass. This conference is competitive. I've watched a lot of these games mainly because I get off work late and the only basketball games on are West Coast games that start at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock for me on the East Coast. So when I get home, they're the easiest games to watch because they're on ESPN Plus and I can just watch them easily. So probably like some of my low-key favorite teams to watch are West Coast teams that I have no chance of ever seeing in person because they don't play East Coast teams in non-conference matchups. But to watch on ESPN Plus, these teams are fucking awesome. UC Irvine, amazing team to watch. I won a bet the other night. They were down 13 points early in the second half, and they went on, I can't remember the number, but it was like a 30-5 run, and they covered the spread of whatever it was, 5.5, 6.5. What a game. What a team. UC Irvine plus 175, worth a bet. Cal State Northridge, they're listed as CSUN, so don't get confused. 12-1. Fun team. They played UC San Diego. Both teams were on like a 9 or a 10 game win streak. Game came down to 1 or 2 possessions. To be the third best team in this league and 12-1 is disrespectful. UC Riverside, very competitive team. Have not watched as many of their games, but they put up a lot of points, 17-1. And then UC Santa Barbara. I've watched them demolish a couple of teams recently, 40-1, worth a bet. All 5 of those teams in the top 5, you could make an argument for. I don't really know what to do. They're all worth a bet, I would say, just because the odds are so ridiculous for the 3, 4, and 5. I would bet Northridge, Riverside, and Santa Barbara because it's a crapshoot with this league. They're all really competitive. And that wraps up the conference tournament talk. I know I mixed in some game picks, but I will move on to the game picks for tomorrow right now. I guess I'll just do like my best bets for tomorrow as I see them. 12:30, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State taking on. First round matchup in the Big 12 tournament. Cincinnati is laying -6.5 points. I will take the 6.5 with Oklahoma State. They might win this game plus 210 on the money line. They might do it. But give me the plus 6.5. At 2 o'clock, we have Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. Pitt is laying -3.5 points. I will take the 3.5 with Notre Dame. Also, I think Notre Dame wins on the money line, plus 150. I just don't like Pitt. I bet Pitt a couple of times. They lost horribly. I won't do it again. I think the easiest play on the board is at 3 o'clock. TCU -1.5 over Colorado. I just think that number should be bigger. So give me TCU. A little bit later in the night, my third favorite play would probably be Florida State and Syracuse. Florida State -2.5. I like Florida State. I like Leonard Williams and his team to get up. For him, he is retiring at the end of the season. And I just think they get one win in the conference tournament and, get a win for their coach on his way out. Maybe they lose game 2 on Wednesday, but they get one win for him. Next up, oh man, look at this. I was spot on with this number. Northwestern State and McNeese, the number is 15.5. I said just a few minutes ago, I thought this number would be around 15. I will take McNeese -15.5. Northwestern State played a really tough, grinded out game today. They had the lead the entire game against Corpus Christi, but McNeese just blows them out here. So -15.5 on McNeese. I really want to bet this Maine and Vermont game, but I've had trouble figuring out both of these teams all year. I've bet Maine like -1.5 or -2.5 a couple of times, and they win by 1 or they win by 2, and I lose. The same has been for Vermont. I've bet them on short numbers, and they have won right on the number. And then I've also bet them in games where they were underdogs, and they've been blown out. So I don't know. I want to bet this game, but I can't confidently do it. I will say the over-under is 123.5. I think that's really low. I think both teams could easily score 65 or 70 points and go to 130 or 140. I think that total's pretty low. Also, the total in Northwest State and McNeese at 130 is pretty low. I think that game goes way over. McNeese can score 90 points on their own in a heartbeat, and then you're only asking Northwest to score 40. Yeah, that's way too low. I guess I need to talk about Delaware and UNCW because I live in North Carolina. UNCW has been a wagon. I'd say I'm probably 4-1 or 5-1 betting UNCW minus the points this season. But they gave me a scare today. They just got past Charleston, and Delaware had lost like 11 straight games coming into this conference tournament. Now they've won 3 or 4 in a row. They absolutely destroyed Towson today. Towson had no answer for them. Like 2 days ago, they scored 100 points. And I watched that entire game tonight, and I feel like they never missed a shot. It was insane. So for them to be getting plus 8.5 against Wilmington, I think it's a big number. I want to lay it with Wilmington, but based on what I've seen, give me the Blue Hens. Give me plus 8.5. Plus 295 on the money line. Maybe they get it done. Oh, my favorite game of the day. It's late, but it's one that I'll be able to watch the entirety of. Idaho versus Montana. Montana is favored minus 4.5. This is all I need to say, and then I'll end the episode. Montana has a guy named Money Williams. Enough said. His name is Money Williams. You bet on Money Williams in the Montana Grizzlies. That is all that I've got to say. Those are my best bets of the day. Montana minus 4.5. Delaware plus 8.5. McNeese minus 15.5. Florida State minus 2.5. TCU minus 1.5. Notre Dame plus 3.5. And Oklahoma State plus 3.5. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Jay Steele, the host of the Steele Talkin Sports podcast. Please reach out to me on YouTube at Steele Talkin Sports. Also on Twitter at Steele_Talkin. Hope you enjoy this episode. These are my ideas for conference tournament week and the games for Tuesday. Gonna try to get up another episode this week and be a bit more active through this conference tournament week and March Madness. So I'm gonna try to be active. It all depends on my work schedule and when I can sit in front of the computer. Thank you to everybody. I appreciate you if you listen to this episode, and we will see you next time. Peace.